join as we go. Yeah, so as Candace said, so Eisenhower's in partnership with the center, and we're continuing, which would normally be physical one-to-one. And this is our next best guess, is about how to get people engaged and kind of see people's smiling faces and to engage with people and bring things to you that, as I always say, things that you want to hear about. There's a lot of things that are not yet open in the medical world for elective surgeries and that kind of stuff. So we're not currently focusing on a lot of physician kind of lectures, but we will be starting that up coming in later in May and then into June and actually through the summer, where we normally are a little bit more on hiatus. We're going to do the reverse. And if we are still doing some sheltering in place, we're going to be doing more Zoom kind of things. And even if we are meeting, you know, face-to-face in certain locations, we want to keep our self-distancing and that kind of stuff. And so we want to give people the opportunity to join however they can. And so we're going to be doing and trial and error of in-person kind of stuff in the future, along with Zoom at the same time. So it's a new world order, and it's exciting for all of us, and I hope you find it. And so as Candace said, so we have a chat, and if you're not used to using it, or at the bottom of your screen, you can, you should have a side or a little button there that says reactions. And if you click on that, you can raise your hand or do a thumbs up. If you have, when we get to questions at the end and you have a question you want to ask, we'll open up the mic. But at the same time, you can always raise your hand during, and we'll be monitoring that and then be able to, when the right perfect time for a break, we will go ahead and call on you. And then you can also, in there's the chat function, and if you click on that, you'll be able to correspond with Guillermo and I, who will be monitoring the chat room, and we can answer your questions as we go, or we can, group them at the end when Beck gets to the questions and answer time frame. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca, who I have, and Kathy and I have thoroughly enjoyed working with this year on nutrition, because we toss her all kinds of different things, and we then say, hey, what do you think? And she comes back usually with not only what we want, but what we hadn't thought about and what we didn't even think we thought we wanted to think about. And so I'm excited for tonight's presentation. And so with that, no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Beck, because she is by far prettier and more intelligent and is going to be able to deliver the message we want. So welcome, Beck.
Thank you very much. And yes, I am Beck McDorman. I am the Clinical Nutrition Manager at Eisenhower. And I have lived in the desert now for just over a year. So it's been an exciting year. And I will go ahead and share my screen, and we can get the presentation going. All right. So one thing to definitely make note of first is I am very practical when it comes to nutrition. There's no perfect diet. What works for you and works best for you and your health is then going to be what is the best fit for you. Also, knowing that we are in an international pandemic, I'm not expecting anyone by any means to be having the perfect diet. Do we still want to be taking care of ourselves during these times? Yes, absolutely. However, we also need to have some grace with ourselves, because things are different now than they ever have been in our entire lives. So I'm going to be diving into some healthy ways that we can do takeout during COVID. So we'll learn how to modify some healthy dining out options as we adapt to changes in social distancing, limited business hours, things like that. We'll go through some pre-COVID information, some tips on menu reading, some healthy swaps, and then some things to do during and even post-COVID. All right, so pre-COVID, let's dive in. Before the coronavirus hit, dining out, about 32% of meals were eaten away from the home. That could be, grabbing your McDonald's coffee on your way to work. That could be eating lunch at the hospital cafeteria. That could be going out for dinner on a Friday night. Any of those things would be considered dining out. So about a third of our meals were eaten away from home prior to this. That made up then about 52% of our budget. You can already see if a third of our meals equals half of our budget, dining out isn't always the most economical option, but for those of us who don't like to cook, myself included, dining out can oftentimes be a very common aspect. However, there is a positive association between meals eaten out with higher calorie intake and higher body weight. So being mindful that dining out when we don't have as much control over what it is that we are prepping or cooking or eating, making sure we make those healthy choices. So choose your restaurants carefully. There are some restaurants where you could just basically go anywhere on the menu and point and you'd find something healthy, and other restaurants where you could do that and no matter where you point, you're not going to find something healthy. So really being mindful about choosing the restaurants carefully. Ask how foods are prepared. Finding out different ways you may not have known that something, used butter or oil that you can just ask them to do without, and it makes it a super simple change. Ask what kinds of oils are used in food. Olive oils being the #1 choice, but again, that may not be as economical for a restaurant, so just asking what options they have, and asking if foods can be cooked to order. So right now there's a lot of limitations to customization in apps if we were to order our food online. So call the restaurant if you have any questions, and if they have a recommendation on how to order it on the app or to put in special notes, make sure to make note of that. Asking for smaller portions. This is definitely something that we can do very easily, whether that's, again, before the coronavirus when we were eating out, asking for those small portions. Consider sharing. I know that I love when I can go and I really like a certain food item, but it looks like just too much for me, so I'll ask someone if they want to split it, and then we'll, get a side salad, and it ends up being the perfect portion meal for us, so that's really helpful. Eating an appetizer as an entree. This is something that is definitely an option for a lot of people that we don't often think about. But if you don't have a big appetite or if you don't have anyone to share with, consider getting an appetizer instead. Or save half for later. I know that's my big thing. I don't mind eating leftovers. I know that some people hate leftovers, and that's okay. But if you can save half for later, that's definitely a great option as well. And then ask you to substitute. If there's, your favorite dressing normally comes with a ranch dressing, or your favorite salad normally comes with a ranch dressing, maybe asking and seeing if they have an oil and vinaigrette option that you can do instead. But make sure you recall the basics. Dining out can be part of a healthy diet if done mindfully. There's no such thing as a perfect diet, like I mentioned. There's no magic pill. Are you getting your fruits and vegetables? Are you having some whole grains, getting some protein, maybe having some low-fat dairy? You don't have to have everything at every meal, but do your best to aim, for more of your plate being those fruits and vegetables, less of your plate being any kind of fat or protein, and just keeping that in mind as you go through making your choices with dining out. Making sure that you're maximizing your lean protein, so doing things more like skinless poultry, egg whites, salmon is a great source of protein and our healthy omega-3 fats, low-fat milk, soy milk even counts as a dairy serving, so if you're lactose intolerant, you can do soy milk instead. Lots of dark leafy green vegetables, your berries. You can't really go wrong with fruits and vegetables. I know that the potato can sometimes get vilified for having more carbohydrates, but at the end of the day, it's still a vegetable, and there's still some really good vitamins and minerals and some really good fiber in a potato, so don't feel like you have to cut that out. Finding moderate amounts of our mono and poly unsaturated fats, so nuts, seeds, legumes, avocado, olive oil, all those different things that can be a great addition to your meals. Some of us sometimes struggle to make an entire meal out of these things, but if you take a meal and as your starch include some legumes, that would be a great option to get some healthy fats, some lean protein, and carbohydrates all in one little thing. Popcorn is considered a complex carbohydrate. It is a whole grain. Popcorn with butter and sugar and salt and caramel, maybe not so much the best choice, but knowing that the base of it is still a whole grain. So being mindful of maybe making your own sprinklings. I know that there's plenty of products out there now that are low calorie, low sodium, things that you can sprinkle on your popcorn. So that's a really great option as well. But being mindful when you order food out, how they prepare things, what they put on them, to be mindful of what, are you taking a healthy food and making it less healthy, or are you optimizing it for taste and flavor and texture for those meals? And then being mindful to minimize those simple carbohydrates and saturated fats. The pictures speak for themselves here. Sugar, crackers, bread, chips, hot dogs, fried chicken, bacon, just being mindful. It doesn't mean you can never have these foods. It's just being mindful to limit them. All right, so getting into some menu reading. So the California menu labeling law requires that chain and fast food restaurants with 20 or more locations, they need to display calorie information. So it makes it a lot easier for us to make those choices. Now, oftentimes it's on the physical menu. So when we're there in the restaurant opening up that menu, or if we're even looking at the board overhead, maybe a fast casual restaurant, we can see that information more apparently. So being mindful that even though it's not right in front of you, that information should be available. And if they have a nice website, you could go check it out on there and get that information. Now, there are some exceptions where restaurants won't provide calorie information. So do your best educated guess. Again, asking those questions as to how things are prepared will get you that good information. So when you're looking at a menu, look for things in the way things are described. So looking for steamed in its own juice, garden fresh, broiled, grilled, roasted, poached. All of these things have minimal added ingredients. So it's going to be very simple, usually just water and then the item itself, in order to make it nice and tasty with other seasonings rather than oil, butter, things like that. So again, skipping over things that say buttery or buttered, something that's fried or pan-fried, crispy, creamed, gravy, au gratin, scalloped, casserole, pot pie. All these things are going to have a lot more content of calories to them, usually in the form of fat than what we would want typically. So oftentimes we end up with some calorie shock when we see maybe one of our favorite dishes that just got the calorie amount listed. We get some calorie shock and we didn't realize that it was that high in calories before. So being mindful of that, some of our favorite choices may not be our best, but our best choices, but you can have them occasionally, just being mindful of those calories. And being mindful, are there any lighter options available? California Pizza Kitchen has small cravings, Cheesecake Factory has small plates and snacks, Denny's has their Fit Fare menu, and this is just a short sample of restaurants that have made options available that are fewer calories. A lot of times I've seen like a little label in the corner of the menu saying, if you look for this symbol throughout the menu, those are going to be our healthier options, and those are really simple to find. So here's a sample of looking at a menu here. The Mediterranean salmon, for example, is the first one. So this is Panera Bread. So they have the you pick two option, which is where you get a smaller portion and then you pick two other things, versus the whole portion is going to be 540 calories. So just being mindful there of, if you're going to pick the you pick two, then you have a little bit more calories to play with some wiggle room. So you could end up getting the Mediterranean salad with the Greek salad, and then maybe add the French baguette slice. And that way you're getting an awesome form of protein, you're getting the nice Greek salad, and you're getting your carbs in your French baguette. So that's a nice little meal right there. And you can see right there building what those calories are going to be. Versus here looking and seeing there's not many light options here, other than the actual, for example, the caramel light. The light itself is going to be less calories. But if you look at like the strawberries and cream, there is no light option. And the smallest size is still 410 calories, which is, not that much less than the meal I just described on the last menu. So just being mindful about what choices we make. And again, not saying you can never have these kinds of foods, just being mindful that when you have them, treat them as a treat rather than as an everyday occurrence. For here, it can be a lot more complicated when you're building your own. So looking and seeing at the salad option, how it can go from 150 calories to over 800 calories is such a vast range that how do you know what exactly to order? Well, again, here you use a lot of that information of what have I ordered in the past and what do I know is less calories. So if you have romaine lettuce, that's already going to be less calories than beans. But beans have some good fiber and protein. So maybe consider having some of that. Being mindful that of how much cheese you add. You can always ask for light cheese. Or you can ask for extra cheese if that's what you want. But again, just being mindful of where those things are coming from that are going to have more calories. I know that at Chipotle, they allow it where you can do actually a quesadilla. So it's the tortilla, the cheese, and the tortilla. And they make that quesadilla, and then they roll that into a burrito. So that's the outside of the burrito. And it looks amazing, but being mindful of how much extra calories are in that because of the extra cheese in that quesadilla. All right, so let's go into some healthy swaps. What are some healthy swaps that we can make for ourselves? So looking at Italian restaurants, one of my favorite kind of restaurants, oftentimes you can see that pasta is something that you can get as an appetizer. So you're actually having some pasta before you even get to your main meal. So a simple thing that we can do is to have it as our main entree. Now, that doesn't mean that pasta itself is low in calories or that it's going to be the best option we could have had, but enjoying it as an entree means you still get to have what you want, but you're actually going to be cutting back on calories because you're not having the pasta as the appetizer and then an entree on top of that. Again, going back to sharing food, Italian restaurants often have very large portions, so being mindful of, can you share something? That's definitely a really great option here. For pizzas, looking for toppings, spinach, mushrooms, broccoli, pepper, all those different kinds of things. I love artichoke hearts on mine. Gosh, I mean, really put any kind of vegetable on a pizza and it makes it taste better. So it's a really great way to get in your vegetables in a sneaky kind of a way. Also, pizzas don't necessarily have to have cheese. You could have the crust and the sauce and then a ton of veggies, and you may not even miss the cheese if you have some good flavors in there. So being mindful of that as well. Instead of things like fried calamari, maybe look for a roasted red pepper or minestrone soup as an appetizer. Rather than looking at a pasta that has a butter or a cream sauce, look for a marinara sauce. Or if you really do want that creamy sauce, maybe try half and half. That's what I do here at Eisenhower. We have pasta day a couple times a month, and I don't eat pasta at home because I know I can get my pasta when I'm here on pasta days. And that's what I do, is I get the pasta and I get half the marinara sauce and half the cream sauce, and it's just amazing. And I know that I can enjoy it when I'm at work because I don't eat it at home. So it is that special thing that I allow myself to have. Instead of scallopini or parmigiana dishes, which are going to be breaded, fried, and baked with cheese, try a marsala option or a piccata dish. Again, rather than going for a cream cake, go for an Italian ice. That's not to say, again, that Italian ice is low in calorie, but it is going to be a better option for you than that cream cake. Oh gosh, I love all restaurants. I'm realizing as I'm going through, I'm like, I'm going to say that each one of these is my favorite cuisine. So with Japanese restaurants or sushi restaurants, I mean, if you know a good sushi restaurant, hit me up because I'm always looking for good sushi restaurants. But again, here, oftentimes we'll see that we get the sushi roll as an appetizer rather than an entree. So we end up filling up on things like sushi, and then we come out and there's this nice teriyaki bowl or whatever we're getting as our entree. Maybe look at having the actual sushi roll as your entree instead. Again, sharing food, that's going to be pretty much on every side. Being mindful that with Japanese food, one of the biggest concerns is going to be the high sodium content. So being mindful of that when you order your dishes. Instead of fried tempura, now don't get me wrong, tempura is amazing and it makes all vegetables taste great, but be mindful that that is a lot of calories. So instead, maybe look for a house salad with a non-creamy dressing or getting some steamed edamame. But again, be mindful of how much salt you add to your edamame. Instead of the nigiri sushi, which is going to be the raw fish on the rice, look for the sashimi sushi, which is just a piece of raw fish. I know also that when I eat the nigiri sushi, I usually dip it in the soy sauce. That rice is going to hold a lot more of that soy sauce than the sashimi piece of fish would. So it's something where you're going to be getting a little bit less of that sodium as well. Instead of a fried sushi roll, look for a rice paper or seaweed wrapped roll. This isn't going to be for everyone. I know that I am not really a big fan of the rice paper wrapped rolls, but again, that's okay. I don't have to do that all the time. It could be occasionally making that substitution, or just being mindful that when I order the one with the regular rice, it's going to be more calories, or when it's fried, it's going to be more calories. And being mindful also that that regular soy sauce has a lot of sodium. So looking to try for that reduced sodium soy sauce. Now, caveat, that does not mean that it's actually low sodium. So I put a little explanation down at the bottom. When it says reduced sodium, that means that it has at least 25% less sodium per the reference amount, so per serving, customarily consumed, than the appropriate reference to. So that means compared to regular soy sauce, it's at least 25% less sodium. However, if you take something that's really high in sodium and you cut it by 25%, it's still pretty high in sodium. So don't have a free-for-all with the reduced sodium soy sauce. Just be mindful. Try to use that option instead, because that will already cut your sodium intake, but still being mindful of how much of that you use. All right, so for Chinese restaurants, look for entrees with veggies. These are going to be very nutrient dense. The more veggies, the better. Being mindful, again, that it might be high in sodium. Looking out for fried entrees, looking out for large portion sizes. Again, this would be a great time to share with someone. Or if you like leftovers, you know, if you want to order a couple different dishes and build yourself a plate out of those different items and then save the rest for later, you could probably get, you know, if you order 3 plates, you could probably get 3 meals if you take a third of each plate for each meal. That would be a great option as well. Avoiding those fried entrees, substituting chicken or seafood instead of duck, which just can be higher in calories. Asking for food prepared with minimal fat. Asking to have soy sauce left out. Reducing sodium, things like that that you can ask about. I know my mom does have an allergy to MSG, which is monosodium glutamate. It is a preservative found in quite a bit of Chinese food, and to the general public, it is not harmful. However, to some of us who have a sensitivity, it can be something that can trigger symptoms. For my mom, she gets migraines. So just being mindful of that, reducing your intake if you find irritation with MSG-containing foods. Instead of those egg rolls, maybe look for some steamed dumplings. Oftentimes, it's the exact same content on the inside. It's just the preparation method, whether it's rolled and deep fried or whether it's rolled and then steamed. Instead of fried entrees, look for broiled or lightly stir-fried entrees. And instead of dishes with peanuts or cashews, which are still good for you, they're just going to be higher in calories, look for dishes with water chestnuts instead, which are going to be a lot of good fiber in there. And instead of fried rice, look for our steamed rice option. I know at Panda Express, they have all the different options available, but you may not know that they actually do have brown rice that you can ask for. It's just not commonly offered. They'll often show you the white rice, the chow mein, and the fried rice. So be mindful that you can ask for that brown rice. Not a lot of sushi restaurants will have brown rice sushi, but it does exist. Or if you like to make your own, that's an option as well. All right, steakhouses, who doesn't love a good steak? So being mindful of ordering maybe smaller portions, so 3 to 6 ounces. Ask to have visual fat removed, so, you know, cutting off those fattier pieces of meat, or looking and ordering seafood. Again, you can't go wrong with a good piece of fish. Those are going to have some healthy options, healthy fats, and have some good flavor as well. So instead of a ribeye or a porterhouse bone, looking for a London broil, my favorite, which is the filet mignon, looking for a flank steak, sirloin tip, tenderloin. Again, just looking for those pieces of meat that are going to be smaller, more dense, and have less fat. And instead of going with our French fries or our au gratin potatoes, maybe looking for a baked potato, being mindful of how much butter, sour cream, bacon, and everything that you put on it, but making sure you try and eat the skin. That's going to be a lot of fiber there for you. Or having it with some steamed rice is always a great option. Instead of looking at a Caesar or a marinated salad, maybe try a green salad with a non-creamy dressing on the side. A lot of research has shown if you have the dressing on the side and you just dip each bite, you actually end up consuming less of the dressing. So that's a mindful way to do that. Instead of going for fried vegetables, maybe grab some steamed vegetables. Instead of going for the pie or ice cream, maybe have some angel food cake with strawberries, berries, things like that. For breakfast. You know, not everyone is eating breakfast out. It's oftentimes one that maybe pre-COVID we were doing more dining out with breakfast. We may not be ordering in breakfast, but there's nothing against, you know, breakfast for dinner. So being mindful of ordering whole grain toast instead of white toast, looking for whole grain cereals, using fat-free or low-fat milk, hot cereals, so oatmeal, cream of wheat, cream of rice, quinoa. I actually saw a recipe for oatmeal made with oatmeal, but also with cauliflower rice that I'm so curious about. I'm going to have to try it because I was skeptical about cauliflower rice. And when you're cooking it, it is a little smelly because it smells like cauliflower, but I actually have an awesome cauliflower rice recipe that I love. And that's something that I would be able to fill up on a big bowl of cauliflower rice with some scrambled eggs, some chicken pieces, toss in my favorite veggies. And I have so much food in there. I am full. And yet there's almost no carbohydrates. It's a really great option. So I'll keep you posted on that oatmeal made with cauliflower rice because I'm so curious about that. All right, so for breakfast, instead of pancakes, trying some whole grain waffles with fresh fruit. Instead of fried eggs, going for an omelet or maybe scrambled eggs, or use egg substitute or egg whites. I don't want to say that using the whole egg is bad because most of the vitamins and minerals, if not all, are in the yolk. But that's also then where the fat is, versus the egg white is basically pure protein. So it's definitely something to keep in mind if you want to maybe have, you know, 2 egg whites and 1 egg to make a total of 3 in your omelet. That would be a better option than all 3 eggs being whole eggs. So mindful little swaps like that. Instead of bacon or sausage, look for lean ham or Canadian bacon. Instead of going for that croissant, maybe grab a whole grain bagel with some low-fat cream cheese. There's a lot of different options that we can do for making simple swaps. With family restaurants, we want to avoid dishes with lots of cheese or sour cream or mayonnaise. Again, those creamy things are going to have a lot of calories and fat. Choosing bread or pita over croissants. Croissants are going to have a lot more fat in them. And again, splitting those large items. So instead of those cream soups, you can go for broth-based soups. This can sometimes be hard to tell with certain things. Some soups can kind of look like they're maybe creamy, so just ask. It used to be at the restaurant we would be able to ask the waiter, but call ahead. Don't be afraid to ask those questions. Instead of buffalo wings, maybe grab some peel and eat shrimp. Instead of a fried chicken sandwich, maybe grab a grilled chicken sandwich. And now a grilled chicken sandwich, it doesn't have to be boring. I put this picture on there because look, there's little bits of cheese in there. It looks like there's lettuce, there's some sauce, there's some tomatoes. It's on a really good looking bread. It doesn't have to be just, a boring grilled chicken sandwich. You can play with it and have some fun. Instead of French fries or potatoes and gravy, go for maybe a baked potato, again, being mindful of the butter and sour cream and bacon. Rice is always a great option, especially brown rice. Some cooked vegetables. Instead of a creamy coleslaw, go for a tossed salad, be mindful of the dressing, or some steamed veggies. Again, I'm not giving you all that much new information. Most of us could probably intuitively, looking at a menu, be able to recognize which is the healthier choice to make among these options. And then for fast food restaurants, so passing on value sizing and supersized meals, being mindful that just because they ask you to supersize for 50 cents more, you don't have to. Again, going for those grilled chicken sandwiches instead. Trying not to have double meat burgers, so a single cheeseburger instead of a double cheeseburger. Not having those fried fish sandwiches, again, going for the grilled option. And then a lot of places do now have, a side of apple slices, a small salad, fruit cup. There's a lot of different options available. For salads, asking for non-fat or low-fat salad dressing instead of the full-fat version. Asking to hold the mayo and cheese, so add more ketchup or mustard, onion, lettuce, tomato, finding things that still add flavor without adding as many calories. And opting for water. Maybe don't drink all your calories if you usually get that supersized cola beverage, which is going to have a lot of sugar and calories. Being mindful to grab maybe a diet soda or a water or even some non-fat or low-fat milk would be a great option as well. All right, so now what does this all mean for during and potentially post-COVID-19? So now we're kind of limited to our takeout options. But within takeout, what are those real options? So there's the true takeout, which is more of a pick-up. And if you're going to be doing that, you want to make sure that you're wearing a mask. I know that there's going to be changes that will come and go as far as what the county requires, what the state requires, but just being mindful that that's going to be the safest option for you and for others. Maintaining your social distance. Most restaurants now have marks on the floor that will give you an idea as to what that social distance, that correct space will look like. Never a bad idea to maintain that space. If it's a little bit farther, that's okay too, but you don't want to be hovering close to your neighbor, making sure that you're giving them and yourself that space. And then washing your hands before and after handling cash and or your wallet. I've seen so many people out there where they have even gloves on their hands, but they reach in their pocket and they grab their wallet, they pay with their cash, whatever, they're handling a bunch of things, and then they go and they do something where they touch their face with their gloves on, and that defeats the whole point. So just being really mindful, if you're driving to go pick up your food, get in your car with your normal everything. When you go in, put on your gloves before you go into the restaurant, get your stuff, put it in your car, but take off your gloves before you touch the steering wheel again, because that way it'll be clean for you the next time you use it. So really being mindful of simple little things like that when you're going to go pick up your takeout food. With other options for takeout that might reduce your exposure to others would be through curbside pickup or through delivery. So curbside pickup is pretty simple. You call ahead, order your food, and when you go to pick it up, you just call and let the restaurant know that you're there, and they will bring it out. Super easy. You just roll down your window, they reach through and put it on your car seat, and away you go. So that's going to help reduce your exposure to others. Or delivery. A lot of different apps now have the option for the driver to leave your food at the door. You can also leave additional instructions to your driver. I know that anytime I order delivery food, I have to text the driver, hey, here's what my driveway looks like. because it can be hard to find. And I've had actually quite a few make a couple loops before they notice, oh, that is a driveway, and they have been able to find me. So just being mindful that you can put those instructions in there. The drivers are doing an awesome job. I had one Uber driver recently text me and he says, hey, I'm being mindful of washing my hands, in between meals with or not meals, but between deliveries with hand sanitizer. He was just being super smart and respectful, and I really appreciated that simple little text that he sent out. So being mindful that the delivery drivers are also wanting to maintain their safety as well. As far as food safety, there is currently no evidence that there is any transmission of the coronavirus through food or food packaging. However, there is no such thing as a no-risk situation. So what can we do to restrict and to reduce our risk through food and food safety? Now, this isn't necessarily to talk about the food safety of, the temperatures of the food, things like that. For, to all intents and purposes, that's the standard that restaurants are still having to follow for food safety. Maintaining temperatures, making sure that foods are cooked to the correct temperature first, and being able to hold at that temperature rather than this being about that. This is going to be more so about how we can maintain food safety with handling food when we've done our takeout options. So if you order something cold, like a salad, and the chef sneezed on it, that's going to have a high risk. However, that is a basic rule of thumb with food safety pre-COVID that, you don't do that in food service. That's the vampire cough, turning away, things like that are still very valid in the food service industry. However, if that happened before it was cooked and then a hot item was cooked, that would most likely kill off anything that was in that sneeze. So being mindful of things like that, if you truly want to reduce your risk, aiming for hot food would be a better option. Again, there's no such thing as a no-risk situation, but we just want to reduce our risk as much as possible. So what else could we do to help with that food safety? Clean any surfaces that the food is going to touch. Pay or tip in advance to minimize that person-to-person interaction. So try to avoid handling cash if possible, just because you don't know how many people have been handling that. When you go to pay at a restaurant and they have gloves on, that's not to protect you, that's to protect the worker handling the cash herself. So being mindful of that just because the worker has their gloves on doesn't mean that you're not at risk if you take something from their hands that they had just been handling. So for example, if you use a credit card, being mindful then that when you wherever you put that credit card after it was handled, that's considered, been touched as well. So making sure that you wash your hands before and after. If you, again, drive to go get the food and pay for it, being mindful of that when you come back home, washing your hands before you handle the food. Again, before you remove it from the packaging, place the food onto your own dishes, again, getting it out of those containers that other people would have touched, and then using your own utensils as well, just again to mitigate that risk. And then dispose of or recycle the takeout bags or containers appropriately, just putting them in the trash right away. Wipe down those counters and other surfaces where you unpack the food. Again, this is just about reducing risk. This may seem like overkill to some, and that's okay. This is just kind of the general recommendation of how to mitigate that risk as much as possible. And then again, wash your hands before eating. There's really, washing your hands is going to be the best bet overall to make sure that you are able to stay safe. All right, so wrapping up. For healthy takeout and delivery, make smart choices. This is the same pre and post-COVID. So again, I didn't deliver truly any groundbreaking information to you about, this magical food or never choose this. It was about making practical smart choices. And that's going to be true now and post-COVID. So just being mindful of that and start with simple swaps. If you have a favorite restaurant when you go, your weakness is this one food item that is maybe not the most healthy option. The next time you order takeout or delivery, say, okay, I still like this option, but what can I have them modify in their recipe to make it a little bit healthier? If it's a cream-based something, can you have them, use an oil instead of a butter? Can you switch to like a red sauce instead of a white sauce? What little options can you change about your favorite dish to make it a slightly healthier version? And then being really mindful of hand hygiene. This is something that is huge throughout this whole process. Really shocked me how many people are now washing their hands and they just never really thought to wash them before. And I know I've even trained myself. As soon as I come home, the first thing I do is to wash my hands. So being mindful of that hand hygiene. And finally, in case you haven't seen it yet throughout this presentation, don't touch your face. That is probably one of the hardest things for me, especially with my glasses, because I do like to play with my glasses, but trying not to touch my face, even during this presentation, I've been very mindful of it, and it's a hard thing to do for me. So really being mindful of that, maintaining your hand hygiene and not touching your face will be very helpful. And it's not letting me advance this slide. There we go. All right. So now with Guillermo and Brett, we can open it up for questions.
All right. This is Brett. Hello, everybody. I'm going to unmute everybody. And I thought there was, oh, there we go. Unmute all.
Didn't expect him to survive. He's still
Yeah, so if there's anybody who has, I've unmuted everybody. If there's anybody who has a specific question, please feel free to ask it now.
It's already one question there. It is safer to reheat food before you eat it. This is from Harv.
Hi, Harv. So it depends on the food. If it's something that was picked up at the restaurant by a delivery driver and they have it to your house within, say, like 45 minutes after they pick it up, you might want to just reheat it just because it would taste better, nice and hot. But if it's within that temperature safety zone, you don't necessarily have to. Now, might we want to, during this time specifically, idea. So if, again, that's something that you want to try to do just to, again, reduce your risk, then that's definitely not a bad idea.
All right. Anything else? Somehow I muted then unmuted, but I think everybody's there. Okay. Any other questions? Lorenzo, any suggestions on when is the best time to eat meals?
There's a lot of different information about meal timing, and it really depends on your own lifestyle, what works best for you, and what your goals are. Without knowing your personal health background or things like that, it really just depends. You know, the general rule of thumb was kind of, you know, eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper was kind of the old rule of thumb, to have that bigger breakfast to kind of maintain. Some studies have shown, you know, eating a bigger dinner isn't good for you, but other studies have shown having a small snack before bed can help. So it really just depends on what your own personal goals are. But I can definitely, maybe with Brett and the Healthy Living Center, maybe that could be a future topic that we could touch on a little bit more.
Yeah, I think, this is Brett again. I think that's absolutely right. And I think we could look at that. I think one of the things that I always struggle with is, you know, you have different medications and different things you're taking, and some with with food, other things without food, 30 minutes before, 30 minutes after, still find time to eat, shower, get ready for work.
Yeah.
You know, it's all those things that you just have to do as part of life.
We need a personal planner just for our medication and food schedule.
Beck, we have one question from Lorenzo Taylor. Any suggestions on when is the best time to eat meals?
No, we had that one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
sorry.
so it's the next one. How about getting ice cream at a place like Dairy Queen or Ice Cream Shop?
So I'm having issues with my mic. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you guys are just on speaker, so, okay.
How about that?
There we go. That's better. So with ice cream, I think that's definitely a fine option. I know my Dairy Queen favorite is that peanut butter parfait because it has the hot fudge and peanuts sprinkled on top, but I usually only get through the top third before I'm tossing it away. But that's definitely an option. I mean, that's not something that typically has issues with food safety in general. It's something that's, you know, kept cold and frozen. And if the business itself has a good health department rating, then I don't see any issue with getting food from there. And, you know, that's definitely, especially in this heat, because this is, again, only my second summer in the desert, you know, a nice cold ice cream would be great on one of these days.
How about them touching the spoon before they put it into it, or, you know?
So with that, it would be typically they're handling the outer part of the scoop, and they're not actually touching the scoop part that goes into the ice cream. If they are, you could always ask the worker and just say, excuse me, would you mind washing your hands before handling that? Or would you mind being mindful not to touch the ice cream with your hands? As long as you do it with a polite attitude and a smile and just saying, hey, I'm just really trying to be careful with my health. And rather than making it about them having done something wrong, I really don't see that would be an issue. And again, they typically are going to be rinsing it off in that hot water in between each scoop to help kind of get the scoop warm to be able to melt through the ice cream and scoop a little bit easier. I haven't seen anyone specifically handling the ice cream directly when I've been in ice cream shops, but if that's something you notice, maybe talk to the manager or again to the employees themselves and just say, oh, hey, would you mind doing it a little bit differently? I don't know how many of you might have seen the movie Zootopia, but there is a scene where they're in a ice cream parlor that's run by elephants, and the elephant is using what is called in the movie an ungloved trunk to scoop up the ice cream, and then it is squirting out peanuts through its nostrils on top of the ice cream. So that would definitely be a health code violation. So as long as your Dairy Queen isn't doing anything like that, being mindful of those practices and things like that, and then I think that would be fine to go get some ice cream.
What I meant specifically, not the scoop, but the spoon, like you get a Blizzard and they they handle the spoon with their hand and then put it in your cup.
Mm. Gotcha. Okay. With that, if they're already touching the cup and then they touch the spoon, if they're touching the actual portion that goes in your mouth, I would say, oh, would you mind grabbing, the spoon from the base, or using your own utensil? I know that's inconvenient, but it's something to really help reduce your risk, is if you're going to use your own utensils. If you're not bringing the food home, if say you're going to eat it there so it doesn't melt, or at least, I guess you can't eat it there because of the social distancing and everything, but eat it in your car before you drive, things like that. Bringing your own utensil or asking for a wrapped utensil. Oftentimes they'll have spoons that are wrapped and you can pull it out from the inside. That's going to be a better option. But again, there hasn't been any evidence shown that food packaging can spread the virus. So again, it's just about reducing that risk. And if it could, how long was it in contact for, things like that, and being mindful of reducing that risk for ourselves. Thank you for clarifying that question.
Yep.
Hey, Beck, this is Candace. So a lot of people, you even see all these different songs going on about, oh, I'm at my pantry and I don't know why. And so it's the snacking and the late night snacking. One of my gratitudes is I'm grateful for popcorn, because if I didn't have popcorn to pop, I don't know. In the evening, you just want to snack on something. And so you mentioned popcorn, and of course I put butter on mine, but so I'm going to try not to and put other things. But are there some other snacks that you would recommend are good for that late night grazing that we like to do?
Yeah. Well, first off, popcorn, I love popcorn. If you can start with a plain popcorn, no butter, no salt, anything like that, and add toppings to it to make it have flavor, great. I like to take popcorn when it's fresh out of the microwave and nice and piping hot and still in the bag. I will take it, just split the top, and I'll take the squirt bottle of I Can't Believe It's Not Butter, and I give a few spritz, shake it up, give a few spritz, and then I have butter-flavored popcorn with no added calories. Yeah. So that's an option as well for that. Then you can add things, add some pepper, maybe sprinkle a little bit of Parmesan cheese, not a lot, some different seasonings. I know that there's a brand called the Flavor God that has a cinnamon roll flavored seasoning that you could sprinkle on there and have more like that kind of cinnamony popcorn. There's a lot of great ways to take popcorn as a very healthy base and make it a little bit healthier, more of the unhealthy side. But as far as great snacks, what I love about popcorn is the crunch. So I don't know, Candace, if that's kind of why you gravitate towards the popcorn. So I like to look for things that have a similar crunch. So I know carrots and hummus for me is a really great snack because I still get that savoriness of the hummus. So it's not just plain carrots. They often, you can even find carrots in the shaved carrot chip shape. And so I will get those because then it's more of like dipping a chip into the dip. And it kind of gives me more of that kind of mental feeling that I'm having, my chips and dip. Cucumbers are a really great crunch. Looking for some protein bars, not necessarily like a true protein bar, but like a nuts and chocolate bar where it's just going to be some almonds, some dark chocolate, and maybe a little bit of
We lost her.
I think, yeah, her video,
Yeah.
oh, there we go.
she was having other, is she back? No.
No.
No, she
It's back. It's back.
Sorry, I got muted. I got muted for some reason. Sorry about that. Where did I leave off with you guys?
Chocolate bar on nuts, kind of
Gotcha.
chocolate.
You were talking about hummus.
So there's
Oh, and hummus.
yeah. So, finding things that are going to be less processed foods. I don't like to use the word processed because if you're not picking it from the ground yourself, the food has been processed before it gets to your plate. But being mindful of options that look more like the original food itself, turning to maybe some peaches and cottage cheese to give you some flavor, some savoriness, looking for snacks that maybe if they don't have the crunch, they at least have the fiber and protein that will help keep you full. Maybe it's that at dinner you're not having enough veggies, which is why we're turning towards snacking at night. Or it could just be that because we have these ongoing emotions and feelings and, stress and boredom, that we are just going to be emotionally eating, and being mindful of, are you doing it intuitively? Where are you listening to your body's cues and then stopping when you're full? Or is it truly being driven by that emotional eating, the boredom eating, the stress eating, where you might need to look for, is there something else that I can do at that time of night instead of going for the snack?
Okay.
That's perfect. Thanks.
Any other questions from folks?
It looks like Harv was trying to unmute himself. Were you trying to unmute?
Yeah, Harv, were you trying to? Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. We saw your finger pointing, so I thought maybe that's what you're doing. And hey, Dan, good to see you from Seattle. Right? You're from Seattle, yeah. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Candace. This has been very good, practical information. I really appreciate it.
Yay.
Good. I'm glad you enjoy. He's a regular on a lot of our Zooms, so.
Oh, good.
That's awesome.
Good. All right. Well, any last thoughts, Beck, or anyone else have a last final question for Beck? This has been great, and I'm now I need a snack. So I do count my proteins and calories, and I realize that I don't now. I guess a key question is I use my fitness pal that kind of tracks some stuff, and I'm under proteined. So, but if I add protein and usually a protein bar or something else, then it adds sugar and it adds carbs and it adds other things that I don't really want.
Yeah, I feel I'm under ice creamed. I think I need a little more ice cream in my diet.
I made the mistake of discovering that my Ralph sells the mochi ice cream, and they have a s'mores flavor that has graham cracker and marshmallow flavored ice cream inside. So luckily they're expensive, so I don't eat them very often.
Yeah, my weakness is the Trader Joe's ice cream sandwiches with the chocolate chip ice cream sandwiches. Yeah.
Yes, those are very good.
It's really tough. I had a bad weekend where, I downed 4 of them in 3 days. So that's the last time I bought them, though.
Yeah. And, being mindful to have that grace with ourselves right now. It's, these are not normal times by any means. I've seen the new normal being tossed around, but this is not normal. And there's a lot of stress and emotions that we're going to be going through as human beings who have those feelings and emotions. And knowing that, having a slip like that where, you acknowledge that it wasn't the best thing to have done, great. And being mindful then the next time where you start to have that urge where you think you could have those again, maybe think, oh, I'm really just going to have the one because it's a nice treat that I enjoy, and go from there.
Yes. Guillermo, you were about to say something?
I think you need to change your dinner option today.
My dinner option today, what? I had my dinner option. And I did it with 80% low-fat ground beef that I had in there, and veggies and grains that were added to it with ginger. It was a mix of things, but it wasn't horrible. The grains were good, the vegetables were good, and the meat was low-fat. Come on.
There you go. Yeah.
And I had to clean the fridge. Yeah, I need to get some ice cream after this. That's a definite. I just really, too much ice cream talk.
I hear it. I hear it. All right. Well, just
thank
on
you,
that note,
Beck,
we're all
so
going to have a snack.
Yeah, Beck, you did a wonderful job. I loved your slides and your presentation. It was really a great job. Yeah, and thank you so much for participating. We hope to have you on these again.
Yeah, I think I'll be back in 2 weeks for my next talk. So
Great. And what's that going to be? Let's give them a little teaser.
Brett, do you have that off the top of your head?
I do not. I don't, because I'm not at work. I know.
I know, and I can't remember because I don't have the newsletter in front of me. Well, then you'll just have to look at the newsletter that comes on Wednesdays. See what comes every week. And we look forward to having
my
you back.
apologies. I don't have the actual.
I mean, I'm presenting it. And I don't remember what it is right now. So.
But we know you'll be prepared.
That's
Yes.
okay. That's okay. All right, everyone. Well, thank you, and hope you enjoyed it. I think we all. It's always fun. It's always good when you can talk about food and then have the idea that you want to go have snacks.
Yeah.
I
All right,
know I got
Karen, some of
to Trader Joe's before it closes.
Oh, wow, yeah. Nice.
All right,
Okay.
thanks everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
We'll see you next
Thank
week.
you, everyone. Bye.
Kathy, did you see your person?